So Louis L. Lee Bird III serves as chairman of the board, chief executive officer, and president for At Home. Lee joined the company in December of 2012 and in a short time has transformed the 35-year-old Garden Ridge brand into the more consumer-relevant At Home retail chain. Before joining the company, Mr. Bird held a variety of leadership positions, most recently serving as managing director of the Coors Group, a global private equity firm that specializes in acquiring and partnering with mature and growing businesses. Prior to this, he served as president of Nike Affiliates for Nike Incorporated, chief operating officer of Gap, and chief financial officer of Old Navy. In addition, he was vice president of finance and operations for Gateway Incorporated, senior director of corporate finance for Allied Signal, and director of finance and business management at Allied Signal Engines. He has held various senior financial and strategic positions for Ford Motor Company and served as assistant vice president and commercial loan officer for Bay Banks Incorporated. He received an MBA from Olin Graduate School of Business at Babson College and a bachelor's degree from Ithaca College. Lee currently serves on the National Advisory Council of the Marriott School of Business, and he and his wife are the parents of 8 children, including his daughter Haley, who's with us here tonight. Thank you for being here. Please join me in giving a warm BYU welcome to Lee Bird.
Well, I'm not going to use the podium if that's okay. Can you hear me back there? Yeah? Okay, good. I can't really see it back there. Lots of lights. Okay. I'm going to just share a few things around business ethics, and I'll entitle it, Doing the Right Thing is Always the Right Thing. I feel like it's a pretty easy thing to do. In fact, I was having a new employee orientation meeting. Once a month, we have all the new employees for our company come in, and I teach the orientation class about our business model, and we go through the values and mission and vision of our company, and one of the values is do the right thing. And I was mentioning to them, I said, everybody is given, I believe, a conscience that the Lord has given us to know what is right and wrong. And that should guide you in making the decisions at work. And I've felt that my whole life, and in some companies that's socially acceptable to talk about that, and sometimes it's not. But I would tell you, throughout your whole career, you're going to have just dilemmas, ethical dilemmas. And you really got to go back to see how you feel about it. And you'll know what's right and wrong. Not necessarily what the company would like you to do or what other people would like you to do, but more honestly what the Lord would want you to do. And the right thing is always just going to be the right thing. And it may not financially turn out great for the company or for you personally, and I'll tell a couple stories about that, but you'll always have peace about it. In fact, when I was working for one of those major Fortune 500 companies, I was head of corporate finance, and I had previously been the CFO for one of their divisions, and their aircraft engine division, and my job was I was head of financial planning analysis. Make sure set up the budgets for the company. We were part of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, so our stock moved Wall Street. We had 134 analysts follow us. And my job was to make sure we hit the quarter, every single quarter. And we had a number of consecutive quarters. Our CEO was CEO of the year. That year he was on President Clinton's Business Roundtable, and he was on 6 different corporate boards. And when we hit our numbers, that's just his job. He made clear to me, my job was to make sure we set the right budget, deliver the budget, hit it every quarter. And we had 13 different business units, in aerospace, chemical, automotive, and so on. And this one quarter got really tight, and one of the divisions, the aerospace division, decided to do a financial transaction that clearly I didn't think was operating income. And the way it works is where you're measured on sales and operating income margin is one of the major metrics. And so I talked to the division. They said, hey, no, we're doing this one-time transaction, but we considered operating income. I said, well, I was the CFO there. It is not operating income. And they said, well, it is. And that's how we're looking at it now. It's okay. So then I went to this controller of the company, and I said, hey, of our corporate, and I said, hey, this is not operating income. You can't let them do this. He goes, well, we got to make the quarter. You know we have to make the quarter. And our stock is going to get hit unless we do that, and I could lose a whole lot of money. and Larry will fire you if you don't let this thing go through. So I didn't feel right about it, went home, told my wife about it, and decided that, so then I talked to our CFO about it, and he was not interested in changing that either. We had to make the quarter. And so I went home that night, and my wife and I talked through it, and we decided that I teach my kids to be honest in their dealings with their fellow man. And this wasn't honest to Wall Street, and so I went in, we decided that I'd resign the next morning. And so I went in to resign, and which was going to be difficult because we had just moved to the New York City area. It's very expensive to live there. They gave me a corporate loan to move there and so on. We were going to have to pay the loan back. We realized we'd have to sell everything, including our cars, to pay everything back and start over again. And what was sweet about it is my wife and I both felt a lot of peace about this decision, even though it was going to financially just ruin us. And I went in and resigned. The CFO says, "Hey, no. We didn't know you felt that strongly about it. Go see the chairman." And so he sent me over to see the chairman. The chairman, I told him, he says, "Don't resign, and we'll change that. We won't let that happen this quarter." And I felt a sense of relief because my wife was pregnant with our 7th child at the time, and healthcare is expensive, and if you quit, you don't have healthcare. But so I at least got to keep my health care, but most importantly, I kept my integrity. And that was the most important thing of all, it's your own personal brand. Everything that you do is is your own personal brand, especially nowadays, where it's all about your brand and who you are is what you do and what you stand for. So that's an example. Another company I was working at, they said all of a sudden we're going to have an SEC investigation. This was back when I was in finance, and the treasurer said to me, "Burn all your backup." I go, "What do you mean burn your backup?" And he goes, "No, burn your backup." Yes, last night I took all my paperwork home, burned it in the fireplace. I said, "Well, I'm not burning any backup. I'm not nothing to hide. I'm fine with all this. There's nothing we've done on my watch." And he says, "You should burn your backup." And I said, "I'm absolutely not burning my backup." And sure enough, the SEC came and I turned all of my books over, and everything was fine. But I'm not gonna. I didn't live in fear of any of that, and so it's just another example. You think I caused trouble because I got a lot of stories, but there was another time I was working for a company, and there's a lot of pressure back before Enron. Maybe you're too young to remember Enron, but there was a lot of pressure back to manipulate earnings to deliver on your financial performance every quarter. And there was a lot of ways to do that creatively. And you could adjust your accounting approaches to deliver numbers in short-term ways. And I was never a big fan of that. And I had one company I worked for, and we were a consumer company. We were selling consumer goods to customers, and sometimes they needed financing for that. And we decided, our CFO, I was the CFO for one of the divisions, the largest consumer division. We were about $6 billion in revenue. Our corporate CFO decided, hey, if we set up our own bank, we could then loan money, and we could loan the money to the people who couldn't get a loan, and then we'd have a bank, and we could loan them money so we could have more sales, because we lose about 25% of the people that want to buy our product can't afford it because they're not approved for a loan by other partners. We could increase sales by 25%, create our own bank, lend them the money even if they weren't credit worthy. And so we did that. They set up the bank. I was fine with the bank until they started lowering the FICO scores to allow people that couldn't ever afford it to pay it back. So I told them, hey, this isn't a good idea. We're going to lose money at it because we're going to have loan loss provisions that are going to be bigger than losses and so on. And I feel like it's manipulating earnings. He says, hey, we got to hit the quarter. And I said, well, I'm not comfortable with it. So we actually had a chief ethics officer at our company, which is not a good sign. If you have a chief ethics officer, that means they needed somebody in the building that knew right and wrong, because nobody else seemed to know right and wrong. So I went to the chief ethics officer and filed I was a whistleblower. And about 3 months later, I left the company because I just really wasn't comfortable with a lot of things. And sure enough, a federal grand jury was called, and I became a witness for the federal government later on. Thankfully, I'd gone to that chief ethics officer. There was documentation of that. I was first investigated. I was subpoenaed by the FBI. They came to my house when I was at a new employer. That's always scary when your wife calls you and says that an FBI agent's at the house looking for you. And I had to get a lawyer, and then I was fine, and then I became a witness for the federal government in this process against my old boss and the CEO. And all because of things that I just knew weren't right, and I tried to keep them out of trouble, and they didn't listen. And I tell you, so those are big things, and there's little things along the way. And these ethical dilemmas you get all day long. You get an ethical dilemma at Old Navy, for example. When I started, I was the CFO, and we had so much theft going on in our stores. We had this big, it's called Shrinkin Retail. And I asked a guy that worked for me, who used to be in charge of loss prevention. I said, okay, just show me how people steal from us. And he goes, you really want to see this? I said, yeah. And so we came out, we went to Emeryville, and just outside of Oakland, and pretty tough part of town. And we went into this one shopping district, and he says, okay, just watch this. We go in the store, and sure enough, here's a mom and daughter coming in. He says, okay, they're going to steal from you. I go, what do you mean? He said, come in. They walk in, and we had a return policy that you could return anything from our store without a receipt, okay? Which is fine. We do that today, but there's better systems for that. So what they would do is they'd come in with bags of Old Navy in their back of their bag, of their pants, or a shopping bag. They'd go behind the tables, pull out the bag, take the table, shove it in the bag, and then walk up front and then get a return. And they want to return all these items that they just stole. And we allowed them to get cash for that. And so we became an ATM machine, honestly. They just come in and steal from us. And so we changed the policy, and it's just not right. I mean, there's certain things that, and even though you're trying to be customer friendly, there's certain things that's just not right for the shareholders. It's not right for business at all. And that was an easy one. Other ethical dilemmas, when I went from Old Navy to Gap division, I didn't want to go. I told our CEO I loved Old Navy. I became the COO at Old Navy. I really liked working for this woman, Jenny Ming, who's just fantastic. I loved working there. We were growing. Gap was not growing. Gap was kind of stuck in the middle, kind of where they are today too. Kind of when you're a bridge brand, it's difficult to compete. But Old Navy was a value brand. The CEO of the company asked me to take the job. I said no, and then he asked me to write a white paper. What would I do if I was in charge of Gap? And then when the CEO gives you an assignment, you do it. So I wrote this white paper, and then he asked me to the board dinner and present my white paper to the board of directors, and including the founder who's there, Don and Doris Fisher, who he opened up all the Gap stores for so many years, and just a wonderful man. And so I went and presented it. They asked me to take the job. Part of my white paper was we had to close at least 500 stores to get us more profitable. We could grow the baby and the Gap, so baby Gap and kids. We could shrink kids, grow baby, ramp up the body division, but close close to 600 stores. I took the job because they finally told me I had to take the job, so I did. You have to either take the job or quit. If your CEO tells you 3 times, 2 times you get a pass, the 3rd time you take the job. But what we did was I said, okay, if we're going to close stores, let's do the right things for everybody. We've got a big company. Let's not fire anybody. And so we spent another 2 months making sure that of those, we ended up closing 350 stores in the course of about a 4-week period. We got everybody a job in the company, either Old Navy or another Gap or Banana Republic. And almost all of them took a job somewhere else. And now I'm in the flip side of this business where I actually take stores over that people close. Like Sam's Club just closed 63 stores recently. They laid off 10,000 people on the same day when they closed those 63 stores. I just bid on 15 of those stores, our company did, to take them over and turn them into at-homes. We take these old boxes that are big boxes and we convert them to at-home. That's our model. So I like it when people close stores, but I don't like it when people lose their job. And so an ethical dilemma, you could have easily said, okay, we're going to close all the stores and those people are going to lose the job, but we took 2 more months and found everybody a job. and it felt right. And guess what? What was interesting about that is because everybody kept their job and they knew their store was closing, we told them, I mean, there was so many gaps. There was too many gaps. It was almost like Starbucks. I mean, you can only wear so many clothes in a day, but you can drink 8 cups of coffee in a day. So we're like, okay, so you could just send them over to another store in the next mall or down the whatever street or in Manhattan. You know, it was only 4 blocks to another Gap store. So we put together a plan that said we let every cashier and every employee know where all the other gaps were and had a sheet that they could hand out. Here's where the other gap is. And we planned on a 5% bounce, so basically reverse cannibalization or bounce over. 5% of the sales would go to another store. Over 25% of our sales moved to other stores. So it drove the performance of our whole company. We closed 350 stores, and all those 25% of that sales goes to other stores. Your same store sales rise for your entire year. And so same store sales rose, we had lower costs, and it was because our employees were inviting them over because they're going to be going to that new store, working there, or at least that they had a job. So it ended up being the right thing for our employees, which ended up being the right thing for the shareholders, and we ended up financially benefiting as well. You'll have another dilemma. I had this just this past 6 months. I've had it a number of times. You'll have to, along the way, somebody isn't working out in their job, okay? And they're not performing well. And when you get to the executive level, people get paid well, and you know, getting fired is not fun, and firing people is not fun. There's a way to do it the right way. And I've always found the right way is if you let people know along the way how they're performing, it gives them an opportunity to correct their performance or look for another job. And in many times, in my case, what I've done is I've made clear about the performance, and sometimes the company is going in a different direction. In our case, hey, we finished a 5-year plan. We've got another 5 years in front of us. Now we're in front of it. And what we're going to have to do for the next 5 years to be successful is going to have to be slightly different than the last 5 years. And so working with the team, and one of our team members was just not keeping up along the way. And we talked about it, and I finally had to say, okay, hey, you're not part of the next 5-year plan. But I'm telling you this because I need to go find a replacement, and it's going to take me 6 months, and it'll probably take you 3 to 6 months to find a job. So how about, I'm going to tell you right now that I'm going to have to go look for some, and then you can go find a job with a job. Every time I've done that, that person has found a job, okay, with already an existing job, no story to tell, they're already working, and they can then just bridge their employment to the next place. And I was just honest in my dealings with them along the way. Hey, I'm not, doing anything behind their back. It's just not working out. I've been fired too, so I know how it feels. And so I just try to treat people the way you should be treated. And I think that's ethics too. It goes back to saying, what's the right thing for this person? This person's a human being. They're going to go home that night to talk to their spouse and say they lost their job. I mean, it's just an awful conversation. And then they got to figure out how do they provide for their family. So if you can have that conversation early enough to say, hey, this isn't working out, after you've had the conversation about performance, and then you just have to say, okay, we're at the point now that it's clear it's not going to work out. You can have an honest discussion and help them land well. And I think that's all part of doing the right thing. Another interesting little dilemma I had, so when I joined, it was Garden Ridge at the time, and now it's called At Home. We had 58 stores. We were based in Houston at the time. We were moving the headquarters to Dallas. I went out to visit some of the stores in Houston, and I was commuting to Houston at the time. And one of the first stores I went to, the lights were really dim. And we have a big store. It's about 100,000 square feet. We have one in Provo, by the way. Please shop there. Okay? We have one in Sandy, that's too, and then we have one in Bountiful, and then we have one in North Ogden. Okay? And I'm looking at one in West Jordan tomorrow. So maybe we'll have one in West Jordan too. What I would say is when I went to the store, the lights were dim, and it's a big store, you need to have the lights up. So I go to the store director, hey, turn the lights up. And they say, we can't do that. What do you mean you can't just turn the lights up? Can we just turn the lights up? Well, we can't. Somebody at corporate controls that. Somebody at corporate, there's only like 50 people in the whole company above the store director. There's nobody in corporate. And they said, well, no, this person. Okay, so I went back to the office and said, hey, what's going on with the lights at Willowbrook? And they said, well, we can't touch the lights. Why? You can't touch the lights? Well, we rent the building from Sears. I said, okay, I know that. We rent most of our building from somebody else. And Sears doesn't know it, but they've been paying the utilities since we started renting from them. I'm like, are you kidding me? We're stealing from Sears? No, we're not stealing. They're just paying the utilities. I said, well, what's the lease agreement say? I said, does the lease agreement, what's it say? They said, well, the lease agreement says we're responsible for the utilities. It's all right, so we're stealing from, just so you know, that's stealing. And we're stealing from Sears. So then I went from that conversation to my office. I called the president of Sears, got him on the phone. I said, hey, this is Lee Bird. I'm the new CEO of Garden Ridge. He says, we hate Garden Ridge. I said, I just got here. I wanted you to know something about what happened. I just found out about something I'm not comfortable with, and you ought to know it. And you're our landlord, and I don't feel good about it, but I'm going to fix it. And I told him, and he goes, I knew it. You guys are robbers and stealers and cheats. And he just kind of went on a rant. And I said, I just got here. I just found this out. I will pay you back all that we owe you, and just let me meet you. I'll go to your office. I'll hand deliver it to you in your office in New York. He lived in New York. It's Eddie Lampert, so he lives in New York. His company is based in Chicago. So we found, it took us, we didn't have an accounting department. So I had to get somebody in payables to figure out the math. We owed them over $250,000 worth of utilities. And so I brought a check, a personal check, not personal, a corporate check. And I remember I called we're owned by private equity. I called my private equity company and said, hey, listen, I just found this out. This isn't right. I don't know how much it's even going to cost us, but I'm going to pay this guy because this isn't right. And he goes, hey, do whatever you need to do. Which is cool. I was going to do it anyway, but it was just. So I delivered the check to the president of Sears, and he said, I knew it. I knew you guys are stealers. And I said, I know. I'm here, and here's all the backup. This is what we think we owe you. If I owe you something different, I'll pay you that too. I said, but I know you're going to close stores, and I want to open up stores, and I think we could be fast friends. And last year we opened up 27 stores, and 17 of them we rent from Sears Kmart. We're their largest tenant in the country. In fact, they've converted 1,100 stores to a real estate company called Seritage. So all their real estate, they're more a real estate company than a retail company now. They took all that real estate, and they've now owned that as property, and they're property managers. And they're slowly closing stores and converting them they're doing some really great conversions into lifestyle centers because all this property they own. And we're their number one tenant, and we're listed as the premier partner for Seritage, this REIT. On their annual report, we're the first brand in the top left corner up there. And that was just I didn't do that for any other reason except it was the right thing, but it's turned out to be the right thing for business. And now they love us, and we love them. We're helping them. We're helping their shareholders. They now can turn into a REIT because they're not able to perform as a retailer. Another right thing to do, we work in retail. No one wants to work on the holidays, so we closed our stores on Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter because nobody wants to work on those. First Thanksgiving, I remember we closed, and I got our private equity partners to agree with that. Said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to close. Our employees don't want to work that day. Everybody wants to be with their family. I don't want to work that day. You don't work that day. I said, but we'll make up the revenue. Don't worry. We'll figure it out. So we'll make it all up. So you're going to close 100 stores on Thanksgiving Day, one of the biggest retail days, and you're going to close on Easter? Yes, we will. But we'll make it up. And so we set our budget without those 2 days, and we made our budget. And what we did is we sent a Thanksgiving turkey to every store director to their home. And I got these wonderful notes from our store directors that were like, and one said, for 17 years I've worked in retail, I've never had Thanksgiving with my family. And it was just really sweet. And we sent a ham to them for Easter. And so it's just the right thing. And it turns out to be great. I get so many customer letters now. And we send an email out every time before those holidays. Hey, we're closed so that our associates can be home with their family, just like you are with your family. And I get so many customer letters now saying it's just a great thing to do. And we just did it because it's just the right thing to do. Another example of doing the right thing is I get a bonus, okay? And I want to earn my bonus. And our executive team gets a bonus, but it certainly feels funny when our store associates don't get a bonus. So all of our store associates, everybody in our company is bonus eligible. And we've had that for a number of years. So for example, if you're a store associate at Provo and you're making $10 an hour, if that store made their plan, bonuses are if you hit your performance, just like mine is, if they hit their plan, they get a $1,000 bonus. So for somebody making $10 an hour, $1,000 at the end of the year is a big number. If you're a store director, for example, in our company, they make about $60,000, $65,000 for a store director, and their bonus is about $15,000 for a bonus. For the store management team, it's an unlimited bonus plan. So if you're supposed to grow sales 5% at your store, you have $15,000 if you're the store director. If you did a 10% increase, you doubled your sales target, you could double your bonus. If you tripled your sales target, you get to triple your bonus. So we had a person who made a $117,000 bonus last year as a store director, and their base is only $65,000. And she came up to me, which is really sweet, this store director of Live Oak. She came and gave me a big kiss at the store director conference. She said, "I bought my first house because of you," and which is really sweet. And I said, no, you bought your first house because of you. And because she delivered it. Their store was amazing. They blew away their sales target. And our company made more money off of it than she did. It still worked out great for everybody. And it's just the right thing. And I want them to feel like an owner-operator. If you're a store manager, it should feel like your store, then have an unlimited bonus plan. So I tell you these things, it's a principle that we learn on Sunday about being honest in our dealings with our fellow man. We have to account for that right up front. And then you talk about, treat other people the way you want to be treated. These are good business principles. They really are. And I would tell you they've blessed my life, and they've blessed the businesses I've been a part of. And I would tell you I'm grateful for the opportunity now to run a company where I can just set those policies in place. I don't have to debate it with other people. But I would tell you there's been no debate. Everybody knows what the right thing is. We give our store managers a very small list of things, the do's and don'ts, and we say, hey, whatever the customer you feel is the right thing for the customer, here's the policies. We have a return rate. Hey, if you buy it, you got to return it within 60 days. But if you return it even later than that, just give them the price of what it's being sold for today. At least they're getting a return. I mean, there's some certain things you can't just say, hey, what do you want to return it for? You bought it for $20, but you want 100 back? No, probably not. So we have a few things, but other than that, we just say, hey, you do what you need to do. You know what the right thing to do is. And I would tell you, just in conclusion, the right thing is always the right thing. It ends up being the right thing for you personally, because no matter what, then I can feel the Spirit always by making that right choice. It didn't always turn out well for me. I told you these stories. I had to quit at different times. I had to leave a company at different times. I've had to make some pretty tough decisions, and I've had to stand up to people that were in charge of my career, and made me really worried as a provider, especially when you've got all these kids, and your wife has left her career and hitched her wagon to you. It's a big responsibility. But I would tell you, you always keep the Spirit with you, and you'll always be blessed. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Got some time for questions.
Okay. Questions? Yes, sir.
So even though the whistleblower does the right thing,
Yeah.
many times their life and careers are adversely affected by being the whistleblower. Is there a strategy, a way to mitigate the effect of blowback for the whistleblower?
Well, going to the chief ethics officer is a good idea. So having a record of standing up for it is the right thing to do. Letting the attorneys know along the way what's going on. So when I joined my new employer, after having leave my last place, knowing that there was potential risk, I went to our general counsel and said, hey, there's something that went on there. I notified our chief ethics officer there. It may come back to you, and sure enough, it did come back, and I got served that subpoena. And then our general counsel for Gap then said, hey, then we'll hire you a great attorney. They hired me, the attorney that used to be the head of the SEC, West Coast office for the SEC. So they hired me a really good lawyer, which is a good idea. I wanted a good lawyer. And so it's just documenting things and notifying people. Don't stay quiet. It doesn't. I mean, I had to quit that place. I had to, I had to possibly. I resigned at another place. Ended up staying just long enough to then find another job. I knew whatever happened with that engine bank thing was going to eventually, another quarter was going to be tight again. But just keep your back up. I kept my materials for that. So thankfully, when the SEC called and the FBI came and dropped that off, I had some of my documents. I don't know if that helps or not. It's a crummy process. It just feels awful. Plus, these are people I work for. I like these people. They were put in a really awkward position, and they made a bad choice. They focused on delivering great earnings and making money off of a deflated stock price that was not appropriate. And unfortunately, they got caught with greed, and I wasn't going to be a part of that. I don't know if that helps or not, but stand your ground and keep your back up, I guess. Other questions? Did that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've held some really high positions, and I'm guessing that you've worked with a lot of different cultures that might have different ethical backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
How do you unite different divisions of people from different cultures to have the same ethics?
Okay, so I worked at, like Mark Hansen. Mark and I used to work at Ford together. Say different divisions, but both in finance. So I worked at, he worked at one of the Rawsonville plant, right? And then, and I worked at the Indianapolis steering gear plant right out of business school, was in the corporate office first, then went to the factory. I wanted to learn manufacturing at the base, and so I was the finance guy for an area. The guy I was assigned to, Larry Boyer, worst mouth ever. Okay, worst. I've never heard words put together like this before. Like, and I was a college athlete, so you normally hear a lot of stuff in the locker room. That was really creative language. And so I went to Larry after the first meeting. I was this finance guy for this area. It's a big plant. It was over a mile long, and I was the finance guy for about a third of the plant. And I went to him after the meeting, after him swearing profusely, and I just went up to him after and said, "Hey, Larry, I'll do anything you need me to do, but I really don't like swearing. So if you wouldn't mind not swearing around me." It took a lot of guts. I was the junior guy. And then he just went off on me. Just swearing like crazy. He goes, "My office, my word," but and I said, "All right," I said, "I just wanted you to know where I stand. I'll still be here tomorrow in the same meeting, but I'm just really not comfortable with this. And by the way, I'll do anything you will need me and just please don't swear." And so it was, he just kept swearing. And then one day, I was sitting in the meeting about 4 or 5 weeks later, and we had 2 medicals for superintendents on the floor, midnight shift, that were out, and they were going to be out for a while. And he looked at me and says, "You said you'd do anything to have me stop swearing?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Then work the midnight shift as a foreman, and then you can do your day job. I need a foreman." I said, "I'll do that. And you'll stop swearing?" And then he goes, "You'll work the floor?" And I go, I'll work the floor. I could use the money, you know. And so I did. I worked the floor, and he didn't swear around me anymore. And what was interesting about that is that year, we had a daughter that was born and died really young, within 3 weeks. And Larry was the first person at that funeral. He came 2 hours before the funeral. And this is a man who he sexually abused women at work, and he swore, and he was just awful. But then he was the guy there bawling at the funeral 2 hours before. He came to me and said, "Is there anything I can do for you today? I just feel so sad for you and your daughter." And he's a good man. What I learned was, and I studied the story of Joseph in the jail. I was reading that to learn how could I be a good servant, because Joseph in Egypt had to be an awful experience to work in the jail. You know, the terrible people. I said, okay, I'm just going to study what did Joseph do, and he became so trustworthy to the warden that he became the number 2 guy in the jail. So he must have done something. He stood up for his values, but he was a good person in jail. So I studied that, and I was going to do that with Larry. And Larry ended up turning out to be, he's a good man inside of him. He went in a bad way in his life, but I found out in the end, everybody's really good. But you can still stand up as a junior guy. I was the most junior guy. My nickname on the floor was Pretty Boy MBA. That was my nickname. That was one of the better nicknames. And I drove a Volkswagen to work, to a Ford factory, because that's all I could afford. It was a $400 Volkswagen, and I had to park across the street because you couldn't park a non-Ford vehicle in the Ford parking lot. And people threatened to slash my tires and everything. I said, "Fine, buy me a new car, but I can't afford anything other than this car." But I stood up for what I believed in. I wasn't trying to be judgmental. So I think you can do it in the right way, but they'll push you on it. They'll test you on it. Does that help? Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
The pressure to make your quarters in a public company, how in your company have you set the tone such that that ethical dilemmas, maybe you're setting a tone where they're not expected, or how do you handle that?
Well, part of the thing I love about retail is I can't goose any numbers. It's whatever goes through the register. So when I worked at business-to-business companies, there was a risk, and I worked at companies where it's considered revenue as soon as you push the truck away from the dock, whether it's been received by the customer or not. As long as it leaves, so we have trailer parking full of trailers. I'm like, what's wrong with those trailers? At the end of the quarter, we had to get those off the docks. Are you kidding me? Yeah, it counts as revenue the minute it leaves the dock. Like, that hasn't been received by Boeing yet. Well, it counts as revenue, and sure enough, that was the rule. But it was just, are you kidding me? So I like retail because it's just whatever runs through the register. And we run a company that's everyday low price. We don't do sales either. So it's just our prices are lower than everybody else's sales price every day. We're 33% below Amazon prices right now. And we're on comparable products, 35% lower than Wayfair. Those are our biggest competitors online. We just have the lowest prices. So we don't have sales. So I can't like goose it at the end of the quarter, have a special sale. So I love that. So it just makes us deliver every single day. So by the end of the quarter, it is what it is. So I actually slowly worked my way towards a career in an industry that I didn't find any ethical dilemmas on trying to hit a quarter. Now, obviously, I'm trying to open a certain number of stores every quarter. We certainly have same-store sales growth. We're spending money on advertising to drive traffic to the stores. We're encouraging our sales associates to convert that traffic and put more items in the basket and sell the stuff. Make sure the stuff that's the more expensive stuff is on the end cap, so then the average basket goes up higher. I mean, we're working every lever of comp, but doing it all the right way. So I found a space that I could do that without any dilemma. Yeah.
You mentioned that in your career you've been fired or let go.
Yeah.
And when you turn around and look for a job, it must be very tempting to paint a story to help you get another job.
Yeah.
How have your ethics come into play finding that next job after that?
They're going to find out anyway that you got fired. I got fired at Gateway. Okay? I got fired. Our executive team, the internet bubble burst, and all of a sudden I went from 40% sales growth every quarter to 20% sales growth, and our stock took a hit. Our chairman came in and fired the top officers in the company. And so 13 of us got let go on the same day. Okay? He brought back the old team. And then the next morning, so I came home and said, I got fired. My son, Lewis, Haley might remember this, Lewis says, can I tell my Cub Scout troop? Go ahead, tell your Cub Scout troop. So he tells the Cub Scout troop, which is in the ward. So then now everybody in the ward knows Dad got fired. So then they call in, Linda, you okay? Everybody okay over there? Your husband got fired. And the next day, because they'll find out anyway. And so it was a management shakeout, so that's an easy one. I didn't get fired for an ethical thing. It just happens. Stuff happens. I've gotten removed from a position because I didn't get the CEO position. I was the next up. I was the acting president. Our group president, CEO, decided to go in a different direction. The new person came in, and she looked at me and says, I don't need you here. I don't want you here. You've been running the place. It's not helpful to have you around, so you no longer need to be here. And that's how my day started. So that conversation's easy. Say, hey, I was the acting president. I didn't get the job. New person came in, didn't want me there. So I got left out in the cold. So I just tell them the truth. It's just the truth's going to come out anyway. People want to game those stories. It just comes back at you like you're okay. Then you're not a truth teller. If you don't get fired sometime in your life, well, I don't mind a high risk, high return career path. Let's put it that way. I knew the higher I go, the riskier those roles are, because eventually there's a management change, or you're friends with the wrong person. That CEO retires and they want their new person in, or CFO is always the selection of the president, and if the new president comes in, they want their own finance person. So hopefully that answers it. Just tell the truth. If you stole, that's a big issue, but that'll come out too. So, any other questions? We're keeping you here late, so sorry. Anything else? Okay. Yes. Wait. Was there one in the back? Yes, sir. In the way back.
How do you balance family life with demanding career?
Well, you have to decide early on. Once you go to sole income, when I started a sole income situation, I went back to school at night, got my MBA at night, because I knew I was going to have to make more money, and then started working and worked weekends painting houses so I just started working more hours. But you decide what your schedule is going to be. Sunday's the Lord's day, all day, every day, and so so every Sunday is the Lord's day. Monday night is family home evening. Friday night's date night. The other nights are you may have to work late. Saturday may have to be a work day. I've honestly not worked very many weekends in my career, but I've worked really hard during the week. I'll have somebody, boss comes to you when you're a junior guy in the totem pole, 4 p.m. on Friday. Hey, I need this thing. You need to work all weekend. Say, okay, that's fine. I'll have it to you. What time do you need it? 8 o'clock Monday morning? Do you care how I get it done by 8 o'clock in the morning? Because I've got something with my wife. I got something with my kids tomorrow. Do you care how I get it done? No, I just need it 8 o'clock Monday morning. So just be honest with people. I also knew a career was going to be at least 60 hours a week. So I work about 60 hours a week and have ever since I got out of undergrad. But I don't work 80 hours a week. You'll blow yourself up. And so I've had moments where I've had to, just, small chapters. Getting ready for an IPO. We took the company public 2 years ago on the New York Stock Exchange. Doing an IPO roadshow is a whole lot of work. For 2 straight weeks, you're out there selling stock, and you're flying all over the country, and you start at 5:30 in the morning, and you end up at 11 o'clock at night in some other hotel, and you wake up the next morning in a plane and going somewhere else. You work those chapters, but they're limited. So but you set the bands. I want to be married to my wife forever, and so I don't want to screw that one up. My parents, between the two of them, they've been married 7 times, so that wasn't going to be me. So my wife and I just celebrated 35 Valentine's Day. You know Linda. Yeah, so Linda's awesome, and she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm not going to screw that up. My dad did, so I'm not going to do that. So focus on your marriage. Try to be the best parent you can. Be present. I'm still working on that. But put boundaries. Set limits always. Okay, back to you.